There is digital addiction, there's alcohol addiction, there's gambling addiction, there's other forms of addictions, and sugar addiction. And all these things seem to go to that part of the brain that gives us that reward. So we're living in a society where it's all about the instant rewards. And when you prime yourself in one area, you can slip into other areas as well. And that brings up this whole addiction thing, that perhaps this pattern of eating that we've developed and this addictive pattern of eating every few hours all the time, it's really an addiction. It is an addiction, and it seems to give us that instant reward. And it doesn't really matter what you're eating, but it's the fact that you're eating all the time, and we need to get out of this. So we need to really look at our whole life to say that, look, the dopamine centers are primed already from a young age. And yes, we are addicted. We're an addicted society. You know that the book that I just finished reading a few months ago, Dopamine Nation, I think it's called. Yeah, fascinating insights that, you prime yourself in one area and then you'll slip into another addiction very easy. And I think that food is one of them. I'm convinced that food is one of them. You're absolutely right. It's a whole lifestyle. And I tell my patients that if you really want to come off your current eating habits, we need to look at your whole life as well. Are you addicted to alcohol? Are you addicted to caffeine? Are you addicted to sugar? Are you addicted to even digital media? Because it's just the way we're priming ourselves. And when they start looking to that, they do see insights that, oh my God, he's right. I am probably addicted to this pattern and I can get out of it.
I've read that book, Dopamine Nation. I actually spoke to Anna Lemke, who wrote that just a few weeks ago on this show. A great conversation. I agree. It's an awesome book. Many of us have heard of fasting. We've heard that various religions have used fasting for years. Many of us, depending on what culture we have grown up in, may know that our parents or our grandparents would fast from time to time. Yet, despite knowing that, certainly in our current society, many of us aren't taking that next leap. Many of us think, and I know I've heard you say before that you were a bit skeptical of fasting when you were at medical school. Many of us probably have thought in the past that, what do my grandparents know? I'm not going to fast. And what I'd love to do, because I think you do it so well, is really go through what happens in the body biochemically, physiologically, when we start fasting. Because I think for many people, they're going to need that knowledge and that science to convince them that, actually, you know what? Maybe I should give this a go.
Yeah. No, absolutely. What fasting does, it allows your body to do what it was made to do. You see, we eat. Insulin comes in, puts everything into storage. So you build up some fat. And then you're supposed to live. So when you live, you now start utilizing your calories and you start burning the sugar. When that goes out after maybe about 4 hours or 5 hours, then the glycogen stores in your liver and in your muscles start breaking down, start giving you the calories that you really need to burn so you can run, do your day-to-day activities and all that. And when you run out of that by, let's say, about 18 hours or 20 hours, and then the body says, I need to start burning fat now. That's what you're supposed to do. That's why you put on fat in the first place. That's why we have fat. It's a storage. And then you start burning that fat. And therefore, you start burning that fat. So the fat comes out, comes into your liver, gets converted to some ketones perhaps. And now you're making ketones. And the ketones are being utilized for energy. And then you go for your next meal again. So the body was made to do this. It was not made to just pile on all the time. Because that results in increased fat stores, which you'll never break down. So your body was supposed to do this from the design. You're supposed to do this. So the important thing is that when you eat and you're taking calories, your insulin level obviously goes up. Why? Because insulin has to get that sugar out of the bloodstream. Blood sugar must always come down because otherwise you get damaged from that high glucose level in your bloodstream. That's why we treat diabetes, right? Because the blood sugar, or the glucose rather, attaches itself to proteins. You get glycation end products, and therefore these proteins become dysfunctional. So insulin says, I'm going to take the glucose out, put it down into the storage. First place it puts it into is the liver. When the liver stores are full, then it spills over into the pancreas. More calories come in, there's more glucose, then it goes into the muscles. And it stores everything, and from there into the skin. And that's the way it was supposed to be. But now when we continue to do that, we just keep piling it on. We never get a chance to burn it down, and we're supposed to burn it down. So the biochemistry of the body was made for feeding, fasting cycles. And this is the way the bioengineering of our body was, but we became dysfunctional because as food became more available, we just kept piling it on and on and on and on. And that's the problem that we have today. It's exactly what you said, excessive calories too frequently. So our insulin levels stay high all the time. So that's the biggest problem I found as a cardiologist. You're eating all the time, you're stimulating your insulin all the time, insulin stays high, never gets a chance to come down. And because your insulin doesn't come back down again, you're always in a storage mode. Yeah. This high insulin is the problem. We've hormonally changed because we're eating too frequently. We're not designed to eat that frequently. Insulin's supposed to go up, then come back down again. Up and back down. We stay up all the time, so your body develops, in a simple terms, insulin resistance. Now, the next time you eat, you need even more insulin because just like wearing a jacket, you first feel it, then you don't feel it. The body, when it has high levels of insulin all the time, it becomes insensitive to it. And that's what's happening. We are a hormonally modified human being now. We're becoming insulin resistant. And this insulin resistance results in higher and higher insulin levels. And that's the problem I found. And I just want to digress a little bit. And I'll tell you how I came to this. In my practice, what was happening is patients were coming in with heart attacks and hardening of the arteries and angina. And I said, okay, there must be a cause. And I looked for it. And the cholesterol, most of the time, was okay. Blood pressure was okay. They were not diabetic. And then I see all this hardening of the arteries. And I'm wondering why. So about 12, 15 years ago, I started doing sugar tests on them. And I found that they actually had mild diabetes, what we call glucose intolerance or impaired fasting glucose. So the sugars were just slightly high, but not enough to make them a diabetic. So I said, okay, fine. So I should put these patients on something to sensitize them and make them better. And I put them on metformin. And I got a lot of resistance from a lot of physicians in the community, plus patients. But the outcomes were better. They actually did better. Then I started doing insulin testing in my office. And I started doing this when I read some information from a physician who wrote a book on insulin, and Dr. Kraft. So it's called the Kraft test. So now what we do is we give them sugar water, patients, and we measure the sugar levels going up and back down again, and said, okay, it went up a little bit, not too bad. But I looked at the insulin response, and it was massive in these patients. So I took 100 patients, and I saw that they were making so much insulin. And I said, this is ridiculous. Why are you making so much insulin? Well, they had insulin resistance. And then I linked the fact that it's the high insulin level that's actually causing the hardening of the arteries, because the sugar levels are okay. Of course, what happens is over time, it's taking a gallon of insulin to bring your sugar levels under control. Eventually, even that's not enough. Yeah, so then the sugar level goes up. And then they go to the doctor and say, oh, your sugar levels are high, or your hemoglobin A1C level is high. Now you're a diabetic. Well, guess what? It's too late. You already have all the hardening of the arteries. You've done so much damage to your arteries. You probably did it for 15 to 20 years. And that's the discovery, and that's what really motivated me to make these changes in my patients, to say that, look, I got to get that insulin level down. And it is that high insulin level that really motivated me to really do the fasting program. Because I said, okay, how am I going to get insulin levels down? How do I do that? I don't have a drug. So that's what, look, the whole thing comes down to insulin. For me, it was. Now, as things happen, I discovered more and more fun things in this fantastic journey. But the bottom line is, it was the high insulin level that really got me into this, because I found that when I brought the insulin levels down, my coronary artery disease, atherosclerosis, just went down. Patients did so much better. And that high insulin level, the only thing I know that really helps to bring that insulin level down, besides metformin and a few other drugs, really is fasting.
Yeah.
Because when you don't eat, guess what? You don't make insulin. That's it. Your insulin levels plummet. And then the next time you eat, you make insulin, but a much less amount because you're now sensitive. So this fasting, I got into it through this way. Not because I just wanted to make them reduce weight, because I just wanted to reduce blood pressure. It was really the insulin that got me into fasting.
If you enjoyed watching that clip, here's another powerful clip that I think you will also really enjoy.
The whole idea of reducing sugar by just adding unlimited amounts of these chemicals has to be thought through, and we should be weaning people off ultra-sweetened products, which make them more likely, particularly kids, to seek sugar.